a second, imagine that you're the most popular, or one of the most popular child actors at the time. You're like 9 to 13 years old, and you're going to red carpets.
I can't even imagine.
You're going to red carpets. Every kid wants to be you.
Oh, wow.
You're sitting there. You're on TV. You get to dress up, and get in all these cool costumes. But nobody knows, or at least the public doesn't know that you are going through so much hell.
Oh, no.
We're going to talk about it's not new, but it is new. The Quiet on Set documentary that was made.
Okay.
About Nickelodeon. I have to put a disclaimer in here because there's a lot of really, really heavy things that we're going to be talking about. So if you are not able to listen to that at this moment in your life, I would suggest do not. And I would go and do something that makes you really, really happy, because we're going to get really sad. And really angry for a minute. So, with that being said, we're going to quickly get into it. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about really quickly, just to get you into the mindset of what's going to happen.
Okay.
We're going to talk about some colorism that happened, some sexism, some abuse of not only minors, but of all sorts of financial, physical, mental, emotional. Nickelodeon really wanted to hit every single trauma list that you can. So, watching the documentary, I had to pause it so many times because I was absolutely infuriated, and I just had to sit there and scream at the screen like somebody was gonna be able to reply to me.
Yeah.
I was so mad. And I think a lot of other people were. I kept seeing TikToks of people being like, me crying watching the Quiet on Set documentary. It's heartbreaking what these kids went through.
Yeah, I know there was a few times where you're sitting over here and you just, lost it.
Yeah.
She had headphones in. I couldn't understand what she was doing, what she was going through, but it was...
It was traumatic. So now, because I had to go through that trauma, I'm going to make you go through the trauma.
Oh, thank you.
Because I love you.
Okay.
So, there were multiple things that went wrong. Dan Schneider, he created All That.
Yeah.
You remember All That?
Oh, yeah.
And the Amanda Bynes Show. We're going to talk about, that era specifically.
Okay.
There's so many things, with the whole Victorious and iCarly and Sam and Cat and...
Drake and Josh.
Well, we're going to get into Drake and Josh era a little bit, but we're mostly going to focus on, the 90s, early 2000s Nick.
Okay.
So, basically, first off, there was this one girl who was basically Amanda Bynes. This was during All That.
Okay.
She was basically like Amanda Bynes before Amanda Bynes got there.
Okay.
So she was the favorite. And Dan was always taking her out to do things. He was always hanging out with her. Never anything inappropriate, but it's just put so much emphasis on how special she was that it was a little bit heartbreaking when he moved on to the next younger girl.
Yeah. That's got to be hard for them.
Yeah. And by the way, there was they didn't stop the rivalry that happened on set. It was almost like Dan enjoyed the fact that the kids were jealous of each other.
Oh, well, yeah.
So she talked about one moment that I wanted to mention because it's disgusting. Where she's getting fitted for a scene. She's doing on all that. This is before Amanda got there. And he looks at her and he's like, "You are getting a little fat. You put on a little bit of weight. We already have a fat one." Talking about another actress who was on.
I loved her. The heavyset girl was like so cute.
And by the way,
kids aren't fat. Kids aren't skinny. Kids are kids.
Yeah, you don't have the right to comment on a child's body.
No. What is he even doing in there? If she's getting fitted for an outfit, that means they're doing measurements and things. He should not be in there.
There was like an open door policy for that. Okay?
No.
We're gonna just address that real quick. They didn't care who was in the dressing room.
I don't like that at all. Now, where's their parents?
The parents weren't really allowed to be. Dan didn't like the parents being around.
Of course not.
So even though they had to have a guardian on set, they kind of got away with that by having this guy. And we'll talk about him more here in a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Because he's a big part of the documentary. But his job was basically to, like, transport the kids to where they needed to go and, like, make sure that they had food and stuff like that. Like, they were being taken care of and stuff like that. So he's, like, the babysitter, basically.
Yeah. Daycare boy.
Yeah. There were several things of them talking about, like, another instance that happened in the dressing room was one of the actors, his name's Brian Hawthorne? Haythorne? I think it's Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, I think.
If I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, I'm so sorry.
Looks like Hawthorne.
He, is, at the time there was only about, on the this is when we get into the Amanda Bynes show.
Okay.
There was only, like, 3 actors of color on the show. And I'm calling them actors. I know they're children, but, you know, they were acting. This was their job.
Yeah.
So I'm going to refer to them as the actors. But there was only 3 of them, 2 boys and a girl. You remember the girl Giovanni.
Yeah, I remember.
I loved her so much.
Yeah, she was so cute. She was perky.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Brian's mother remembers, like, day 1 that they got there. And one of the first, actually, it's the very first time we meet Brian on the set. No, not on Amanda Bynes. Sorry, not on the Amanda show. It was on All That.
Oh yeah, okay.
They run together.
Yeah, they did.
They run together. So
I actually thought All That was the Amanda Bynes show. I just thought that, you know, they were.
Yeah,
concurrent.
it morphed into the Amanda Bynes show.
Yeah.
But his character was supposed to, like, come up to, I think it was Drake Bell, and he's like, do you want to buy these Girl Scout cookies? But he's doing it, like, real secretive, like, the innuendo that the Girl Scout cookies are drugs.
What?
And it's like, his mother was pointing out, like, oh, okay, so, like, the black kid's gotta play the drug dealer. Like, that's that's the environment I'm setting my child up for.
Well, number one, why are they talking about buying and selling, insinuating drugs, and why can't Drake Bell play the drug dealer?
Because, in my opinion, allegedly, do not come for me, Dan. He's racist.
Yeah.
He never hired he never hired people of color.
Well, you could
as,
see
like,
that.
writers or anything like that. So,
wow.
But, in my opinion, they only hired them so that they could seem like the cast was diverse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you could kind of tell.
Well, all the roles that they got,
that
the kids who were African American on the show, they always played like the rapper, or like they always paired the two black characters together, and it was, looking back on it now, it's really offensive.
Yeah.
So, but his mom, she seems like she's so opinionated in things, and she's like wants the best for her child, but it's like sometimes you can tell like she's trying to hold back her opinions, even though it's to protect her kid. It's like she wants him to succeed so badly that it's like, do I shut up and I ruin and I let him be a part of something that's going to hurt him mentally, or do I allow, or do I not allow this to happen and have my kid hate me because I missed his opportunity? You know what I'm saying? It's that sticky. She was in that sticky situation where
that's hard.
Wanted to make it known that was not okay, but also this is what he wanted, and he thought this was the way that he was going to get his family out of the bad part of town. Even though I don't personally think that's what she was putting on him, like she never sought out to tell him that that's what this is going to be. Yeah. I think this is something that he thought, and this whole experience messed their relationship up.
Oh, I can imagine.
The more his mom was like, hey, that joke's inappropriate. Hey, that's kind of racist. Yeah. The more she talked and the more she was pointing out that these were not okay things to do, the less lines he got, the less screen time he got. The not as cool characters he got. So their relationship kind of messed up because of that. There's so many relationships that were just destroyed.
That's horrible.
By the toxicity of this one freaking company.
That's just horrible. I mean, they basically ruined a mother and son.
He is going through a lot of therapy, because of the things that happen.
That's so
There's
sad.
A scene where they had those. I know you probably remember them, but I know you didn't watch all of them. Do you remember when they did on-air dares?
Yeah.
It was like Kid Fear Factor, and
I didn't watch it, but
your brothers did. I couldn't watch it because it was too gross, and because I don't like bugs. I don't like that kind of stuff.
It's not my thing.
I don't like watching people get hurt or put themselves in a situation where they can get hurt. It just makes me uncomfortable. But one of the things, he lost a dare. He had to do something, or he had to be slathered in peanut butter.
Ew.
So he had to take his shirt off.
And this is Brian.
He was taking his shirt off. He had to be they rubbed peanut butter all over him, and then he had to lay down on the floor, and these dogs licked the peanut butter off of him.
Oh no. Oh no.
And, like, you can see in the clip that they play in the documentary, he says, oh God, oh, I don't like this. He's literally, you can hear it. It's very vocal that he says, I'm uncomfortable.
Wow.
And he very clearly is sitting there like, as these, like, 5 dogs bit, and I mean, they're not like little tiny chihuahuas. I'm talking about, like, golden retrievers. Yeah. Licking peanut butter off this boy, and it's like...
Shirtless?
Why was this allowed?
I didn't see that, or they would not have... You would not have watched it.
I think I remember watching it. But I was like, that's gross, that's nasty. Ew, a boy shirtless. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, well, to him, it was probably disgusting.
Yeah.
To the peds that were out there watching it, they probably liked it.
Yeah.
But the other kids got the message that, oh, it's okay to do stuff like this.
Well, and it was also like, the kids were talking about how, like, they couldn't say no. Because it was like, I'm giving
No.
you this opportunity. Why, don't let me down. And then also, I could take it away from you in a split second and replace you with someone younger and funnier.
Yeah.
So it's like there was always
You're a dime
fear.
a dozen.
Yeah, there was always fear, and it was never like a fun, safe place. And there was another on-air dare that they did where a boy, I don't believe that he wasn't in the documentary, but he put it was a live scorpion in his mouth. And I remember watching that and wanting to just
why
melt away. That scared me so badly. Scorpions freaked me out. I don't like that. There was another kid who had to get in a bathtub full of worms. Now, as a kid, I ate worms, so the worm thing doesn't scare me as much. It's just nasty.
I don't mind worms. I go fishing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've used live bait. Sorry, people who love worms. I love worms too.
We haven't fished in years.
But that is disgusting.
Yeah,
I mean, just to have them moving around on your body and
and it was the bathtub full. Like one of those claw.
And they were live?
Yeah. One of those claw bathtubs. It would have been worse if they were dead.
Yeah. But just to have them moving on you.
I know.
Ugh.
The scorpion thing really freaked me out.
Oh, yeah.
Really freaked me out.
Hopefully they took whatever could see him out. Yeah. Were the pinchers open?
It was moving.
Oh, God, no.
He had to put it in his mouth and close.
No.
Yeah. And according to the other people, the other kids who were watching, they were like Brian and Giovanni, they were saying, like, they were so disgusted and scared. Even though they weren't doing the dare, they were traumatized by, like, oh my God, like, what if I had to do that? Oh my God, this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they were probably hiding or something, so they wouldn't have to do something.
No, they had to stand there.
Oh my God.
There were, several things like that were just like, why is this being allowed? Now, Dan says he did an interview with the guy who played,
wasn't he the guy that played the, like, waiter on iCarly?
Yeah, the guy at the juice
yeah,
smoothie place. I know his name's Buggy?
Oh my God.
Or something like that. I don't know. I don't really care about him anymore. I used to love him. Boogie. I used to love him. He was so funny to me as a kid.
Yeah.
But now I have no respect for him.
Is he, like...
For Dan. I was very, very, pro Dan. No hard-hitting questions. They tried to make it seem like there were hard-hitting questions. But no. Observe on YouTube. They did a video about, or he did a video about the body language analysis of it. Mm-hmm. I would go watch that because it's kind of interesting. Talking about how, like, defensive Dan got and how it was very, he gave the impression of not all the facts being shared.
Oh.
So there was that.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan, in this latest interview that he did with Boogie, that he says that the on-air dares they went too far. He believes that they went too far. But he, basically, what can you do? Is what I got.
What can you do?
That's what I got from what he said.
When he realized that they were going too far, why didn't he stop?
Because he's claiming that he didn't have full responsibility for everything. He claims that there were people higher than him, that they were the ones, approving jokes, and he didn't have final say.
He was the producer. Of course he had final say.
But see, this man, he gained such a reputation at the company of, like, basically anything that he touched turned to just dollar signs. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was able, I mean,
he was their golden boy.
Yeah. He was responsible for pretty much almost all of my favorite childhood memories. You know what I'm saying? And to sit here and think about how, see, these kids that I loved were being treated, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And to look back on it and realize now that, oh my God, that was actually really inappropriate. Why was I watching that?
Yeah.
And it's not even about, like, your parenting.
No, because I wasn't home at the time.
Well, you think, oh, it's on Disney, it's on Nick, it's, it should be okay. This is a kid channel.
I did, sort of.
I was censored with Nick a little.
The Nickelodeon. I felt more comfortable with Disney. I don't anymore, but I felt more comfortable with Disney. But Nick, I always sort of try to censor some of that because some of all that wasn't appropriate for you.
Yeah.
Your brother watched it, but I...
Yeah. So...
But I wasn't, like I said, you were with my mom.
Yeah.
And Grandma couldn't hear a lot of those jokes.
Yeah. So a lot of them went over my head and disappeared in her ears.
Yeah. My mother was deaf.
Now, one of during the Amanda Bynes show, there were 2 female writers.
Okay.
I believe they worked on all that too, but there was a scene that they were talking about, or they were writing for, that was talking about high school, right? So they're talking about high school.
Why are they talking about high school though?
It was supposed to be like a high school skit.
Okay.
And Christy Stratton is her name.
Okay.
She was telling a story about, or like a thing that happened to her in high school. Just to give, context to what they were writing and stuff like that. And, Dan proceeds to tell her that, it would be funny if she bent over the table and pretended like she was being SA'd and told the story at the same time. And she was like, I don't really want to do that. And he was like, oh, come on, it's, come on. And basically, she did it. And she says now that she regrets doing it, and it's very traumatizing for her. And it was very degrading. And
well, yeah, because she said there's only 2 writers that are female.
Yeah.
The rest of them are men.
And now there was also, so there was that, and then there was, which is probably the worst thing I've ever heard Dan do. I'm sure there's worse, but I'm saying, like, to take an innocent childhood memory of someone and then make a woman turn that into something so disgusting and vile. And,
she's never going to have that good memory.
Yeah.
It's ruined.
And just the acting out of it in a way is also just, it's just nasty. I'm sorry. It's gross.
That is so disgusting.
Now, the 2 girls, so Dan said when they hired them, these are 2 freelance writers. They don't really have that many credits under their names. So they're, they're trying to make it a job, but it's like they don't have that much money. They are, this would be like the ticket in.
Game changer.
Finally getting paid for what they're writing. For what they're writing.
Okay.
And he tells them, So what we do at Nick is we hire in teams. So your paycheck is split into half with another person. So like basically if you make $25, it's split.
So if I make $5 an hour, or $10 an hour,
5 is to this person, 5 is to you.
No.
Is how it's split.
No. If I make $10 an hour, I earn $10 an hour.
But see, they were like, we'll do it. That's, I'm finally getting paid. And, she was like, she needed that money to live, to eat, to pay her rent. And so they did it. It was later on, about midway through, I think season 2 of the Amanda Bynes show, where they found out that was not actually legal.
Oh.
And the men that were being hired got paid full salary.
Oh, no.
They were not split into teams.
Oh, no. No, I would go to somebody.
But see, they didn't know about that at the time. They didn't know. Basically, Christy was, forced to quit.
Wow.
Because she was just not his cup of tea anymore, basically. Not doing what he wanted her to do. Not writing these vile, disgusting jokes.
Wow.
And so the other woman that was a writer, there was a memory that she recalled where, this is after Christy had left. She goes into, Dan's office, and all the other male writers are standing there, right? So they're all in the room, and he's like, now she had found out that the salaries she needed to be paid full.
Okay.
Her full price.
Good for her.
She had actually called the Writers Guild to ask about that, and they were like, so that's what's happening. We're going to look into it. So Dan calls her into his office, and he's like, pitch your skit. So she's, doing that. And as she's about to start speaking, he says, you used to do phone sex, didn't you?
What?
And she's like, no, I didn't. I never did that. And he's like, no, you were telling me that you did phone sex before, as a job. And, basically humiliating her in front of all of these other men.
What has that got to do with her writing?
Absolutely nothing. It has absolutely nothing to do with her. And so basically she packed up her stuff and left because, she didn't want to be degraded anymore. There was always, like, the calling them the girls, and, just the asking for massages. Now, Dan required massages all day long. Every day. Somebody had to be giving him a massage. And he says now, he was like, that was inappropriate. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it was.
I was just a stupid kid. He was in his 20s. He wasn't a kid.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when the girls, the female writers, they didn't want to give him these massages and stuff like that. He had one of the stylist girls do it and stuff like that. And it was just...
Wow.
He doesn't respect women at all.
That is disgusting.
Now, Jenny is the other woman that I was talking about. He said, one of the reasons why she walked out was because of that, but then there was also another instance that was like the nail in the coffin. Like, he said, you're gonna come back for season 2 of the Amanda Bynes show, but because you ratted me out to the Writers Guild, I'm gonna pay you for 16 weeks of work, but you've got to work for the full 26 weeks of work.
No.
So you're gonna give me the rest of the time for free.
No, because I'll just go back to the Actors Guild.
And so basically she just packed up her desk and she walked out.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, that was the final, like, all of the degradation and humiliation, that was it. That was just it.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. So he didn't really care if you were young, old,
No.
female. It didn't matter.
As long as, yeah. Now, another incident with Brian, was that he had to play this, character called it was the youngest rapper.
Oh.
And so it was Little Fetus was the character. And you know
Fetus?
how, like, when you're in your mom's womb, you don't have clothes on? So he had to wear this bodysuit. He was fully covered. He wasn't being shown.
But still.
It was the insinuation of nakedness, though.
Yeah.
He's getting fitted for this bodysuit, though.
Was he up there rapping?
He's laying down on the floor, like, in the fetal position.
He likes for him to be on the floor, doesn't he?
He really does.
That's sick.
It's gross. Now, he's laying on the floor, and he's, rapping and stuff like that. But he was being fitted for this, bodysuit, the skin color bodysuit. And Dan comes over to him and makes the comment that, oh, it's got to be charcoal colored. Brian is black. This comment he said he started crying, and Dan left, and the stylist woman was comforting him and saying, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. You're fine. Don't listen to what he says. You look fine. You're fine.
This is a
just
child.
So gross. It's just so gross.
And you know what? I remember the kid. He's
yeah.
Not that dark, and
even if he was, it doesn't really matter. It's not your place to comment on anyone's skin color, Dan.
Exactly.
I had a crush on him.
This child, he was adorable.
He really was. Now,
I don't remember that, though.
We're going to talk about Jason Handy.
That doesn't sound very good.
Jason Handy is handsy.
Oh.
Okay. I might laugh or, like, giggle, but it's because of uncomfortableness.
Yeah,
I do that.
Gets nervous.
When I get nervous, I giggle. I'm not laughing at anyone's situation. I just want that to be completely clear.
No, and sometimes it's just so absurd.
Yeah.
That,
talking about these topics makes me uncomfortable. So Jason Handy worked for Nick. He was...
he was a grown-up?
Yeah, he's a grown-up. He worked for Nick, and he was responsible for taking the kids to where they needed to go. He's that babysitter guy.
Oh.
He was doing, like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, he was kind of everywhere. But, like, he would escort the kids around and make sure that they needed to be where they needed to be.
Yeah.
And he was arrested. He had over 70,000 images of CP on his computer. I don't think I need to tell you guys what CP is. I can't say it, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But yeah, 70,000 images. And
that is disgusting.
Now,
Handy needs to have his hands cut off.
Now, one of the actresses who was on the show, there was a little girl, her name was Brandy. And Brandy's mom was in the documentary talking about how Jason was like, this was before he got arrested. He was like, oh, I know tons of people, like I could probably get you some more roles. Like, I know tons of producers and directors. I want to help get Brandy, in the door. I want to help her. And her mom was like, oh, this is someone who has inside knowledge of the thing. Like, he's a Christian. He's a good guy.
Now, how old is Brandy?
Brandy was 7 when he met her.
Oh my God.
And
this scares
9
me.
when something happens.
Oh my God. This really scares me.
Now, Jason asks for Brandy's email. And he's going to email her back and forth. Now, he's in his 40s. Or in his 30s,
Okay.
He's an old guy. And Brandy had shown her mom the email that he sent, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm working on this show, yada yada yada, I'm just doing this stuff. So it was like normal stuff. Yeah. So her mom didn't think that there was anything suspicious about it. She thought, okay, this is a trusted adult that I'll let you guys email.
Yeah, just doing day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And plus, if, he gets to know her, he could get her on other shows, because this is what her childhood dream was, to be an actress, and then it never happened. But Brandy really, really wanted to do it, so she wanted to help her daughter do that. And, she was like, I'm so happy that I get to be the mom that lets my daughter's dreams come true. And one day, a couple of years on in, Brandy she's sitting at the computer, then her mom walks into the room, Brandy shuts the computer down really quickly, gets up, starts crying, and runs to her bedroom.
Oh.
And her mom, being a mom and a good parent, is like, something just happened, what the hell just happened? So she runs over and she's like, Brandy, tell me what happened. And she's like, I got an email from Brian. And Brian sent me a picture of him doing something to himself. And the caption was, I'm thinking about you.
Oh my God.
This is a 9-year-old child.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So her mom stopped all contact. She
called 911.
She made the decision to not call 911 because she thought that maybe she would be seen as a bad mother for letting him talk to her privately and things like that. And I don't want to judge her, because she eventually does do the right thing later on, and they testify against Brian. Or Jason, not Brian. Jason. There's so many names in this.
It's so disturbing that you have to choose in your child's happiness and your child's safety, because these people want to be like this.
Well, she stopped acting after that. She didn't allow her to do it anymore.
Good.
Now, 4 months after Mr. Hansey, he was arrested. He was arrested for the CP, but they for some reason didn't charge him with, he wasn't convicted of that. He was charged with it, but he wasn't convicted of that. He was actually convicted of, Brandy was lucky. There was another child who was 7 years old, another actress, another girl, who was essayed by Jason. And that he was convicted of sending the picture to Brandy and what he did to this other 7-year-old.
Oh my
Now,
God.
4 months after Mr. Hansey was arrested, another person is arrested who works on the Nick set. Specifically with Dan Schneider, specifically on the Amanda Bynes show, and was on all that. And several other of Dan Schneider's little shows. There was a man, his name is Brian Peck. He's not related to Josh Peck.
Okay.
But it's spelled the same way. Brian is probably D-bag of the day. Yeah. He's probably, he's worse than Dan Schneider.
Oh, wow.
In my eyes. Dan Schneider's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But this man is bad. Now, he was arrested for the essay of a minor on the set of the shows. But nobody knew who that person was until this documentary came out.
Okay.
Because it was a minor, it was listed as, the man or the person, the kid was listed as John Doe.
Okay.
But now we know John Doe to be Drake Bell.
Okay. Wow.
He's coming out to tell his story. Now, before I get any comments or anything like that of people saying like, oh, he essayed a minor, yada yada yada. From what I understand, there was no conviction.
Yeah.
And the charges were dropped. He never assaulted anyone. He only texted a minor inappropriately. I'm not saying that that's a good thing or that should be excused. We are talking specifically about
what happened
14 to 17-year-old Drake Bell.
Okay.
I'm not talking about any of his new, like, the DUIs and all that stuff. We're not talking about any of that. We're strictly talking about what happened to him as a victim.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I'm not going to mention any of his other crimes after this.
Okay.
We're just going to talk about what happened to him. I just wanted to get that prefaced. So, nobody really knew that it was him, but basically, Brian Peck weaseled his way into Drake Bell's life in the most vile way. He is a dialogue coach. Basically, his job is to help teach the kids how to express better, and when it's sad, you gotta say it this way, and it's like, or you could change the phrasing. Oh, this accent, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's supposed to help teach them acting better. And he really, really took a liking to Drake. And Drake's dad, he was in the documentary, and I have so much respect for this man. I truly respect him. He is...
Was he the guy you were crying with?
Yes. I was sobbing with this man. He is a good father, in my opinion. He did make mistakes, but I think he did them in the best interest of his child. Or what he thought was the best interest of his child. Him and his father, one of the things that him and Drake would do was, after his parents got divorced, was he would pick him up from school, and Drake loved to audition. They both liked, that kind of stuff. So he would take him to auditions. That was like their bonding thing.
Okay.
And Brian was like, I want to help Drake get more roles. I can help him get better roles. I can help him. Let me be his coach. And so he was like, okay, sure. And he's like, well, I hold I do only teach lessons at my house. So you got to come to my house. And his dad's like, okay, we'll come to your house. But his dad would, like, sit on the couch, and then, like, there would be, like, a little table off to the side, and that's where they would be. He was always watching him. Because Drake's dad, started noticing him touching Drake's arm. And, like, sliding it, like, down to his elbow, like, romantically.
Yeah.
And then rubbing his back. And always trying to hooking his hand around his waist. And Drake's dad went up to one of the females, I believe she was a stylist producer or whatever, somebody at the show, and he was like, so, I don't like how much he hangs around my son. Like, he's always around my son.
Yeah.
And he's trying to touch him. Like, he's going into the dressing room and trying to help Drake put on his shirt. And he's like, I know Drake can do that stuff on his own. Like, he doesn't need to be in there. Why is this man always around my kid. Like, I'm watching my kid, because, like, where the other parents would, like, go off and do their own thing, he would sit in next to, like, a little window so that he can always keep an eye on.
Oh, okay.
So he was, you know, always watching, and he talks like he was in the military, so I believe he was in the military. Like, he was using, like, scuttlebutt and stuff like that, and so, like, he was in the military. So he has the observation skills.
Yeah.
And this woman who works on the set was like, oh, well, you know, Brian is gay, and he's really, really affectionate, so you just must be homophobic.
Okay.
And he was like, sure, I guess that makes sense, you know, maybe I'm just thinking about it weird, because I know he's gay, and, you know, maybe in my mind, it, you know, he was trying to make it sound, you know, not be that big of a deal, but he was still uncomfortable with the situation.
Yeah.
So, then, Brian always wanted to hang out with Drake, and he would want to take him to Disney, because Drake really liked going to Disney, and, you know, this guy really, really worked himself to be, like, Drake's best friend. Drake was obsessed with, like, cinema, like, old films and stuff like that, and Brian knew all about it. So it was like...
How old is Brian?
Brian was in his 40s. 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
He was way older.
I'd worry about it too. I mean, I don't think that's a normal relationship.
No, he actually, Drake's dad actually mentioned that he had saw some clips of when Brian worked on a set with Leonardo DiCaprio when he was a kid.
Oh yeah.
And he was like touching him like that, and like always, the clip that they played was like Brian was saying, like, oh, you're so hot, you're so sexy, like, all the girls want you. Like, you know, It was supposed to be like, oh, you're the hottest actor at the time, like, you're such a, you know, all these girls think you're just so hot. But it was
Children aren't sexy.
And he kept touching him, and, like, touching him, like, you know. He was like, that's what he was doing with Drake. So he would try to take him to Disney all the time. Drake was in a band, as you know, because I used to be obsessed with Drake Bell.
Oh, yeah.
And, so Drake would play all these little shows, and his dad was his manager, and he would book him shows and stuff like that. And, like, he would go from Orange County to San Diego to see Drake.
Wow.
Just to see Drake.
That's a big drive.
And his dad noticed, he was like, it wasn't like, you know, oh, I'm 20 minutes away, I'll stop by.
Yeah.
It was like Brian Peck and like 5 or 6 older men were coming to see Drake at these shows, and they were friends. So his dad was just like really, really uncomfortable with Brian. He didn't like him.
Yeah, I don't like Brian.
And he always had to be with Drake when he was with Brian. Like, he was always watching them. He never let them be alone. Yeah. And that would slowly become an issue for Brian.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because abusers want you to be alone. They want you to feel alone. They want you to be alone so that they can harm you.
Yeah.
Now, he would also, when Drake was turning 15 years old, he would, Brian wanted to have Drake's birthday party at his house. Because it was big, and they've had tons of other parties there. Like, the cast would have these, like, little barbecues and stuff like that, and they would often be at Brian's house. This is one time, this is going to put into context what kind of person Brian Peck is. They were at a party, and one of the other actors on the show was just kind of like walking around, and they have this, he had this room dedicated to, I believe it was Star Wars. It was just all memorabilia.
Wow.
But there was one painting in the background that was not related and it was of a clown. And
Oh my God.
he was like, "That's weird." And he looked on it, and it said, "To Brian Peck from your friend, or essentially it was from your friend, John Wayne Gacy." He had one of Gacy's self portraits, and he went and he was like, "Hey, you got a Gacy painting, basically? What is that?" And Brian was so excited to tell everybody that he knew John Wayne Gacy. And in his next to his in his nightstand next to his bed, he had letters from John Wayne Gacy.
Oh
they
my
communicated.
God.
They were friends.
Oh.
Whilst he's in jail.
Oh, that explains so much.
So that's going to put it into context what kind of person this is. If you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is,
go look him up.
If you could handle. He is someone who tormented young boys. That's all I'm gonna say, because we're gonna try to keep it as light as possible.
Yeah.
So, at this birthday party or whatever, this Drake's 15th birthday party, Brian Peck had invited some of his friends. So these are adult men at a 15-year-old's birthday party. There's other 15-year-olds there. Most of the people who came were from the shows, because those were Drake's friends.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's who he hung out with.
Yeah.
Went to school with.
So his dad's loading presents into the back of his car, and he sees these like letters and stuff like that, and he, because he's a dad, he's opening them up, and he's, seeing what the letters are. And they are from these friends of Brian Peck, and they're all obscene. Like, all really, really gross, obscene letters about Drake, to Drake.
Oh my God.
They never went into details of what these letters entailed, but that they made his father super uncomfortable. And he asked Drake, he was like, "Drake, what are these?" And Drake's like, I don't know, I didn't even know I had that,
Wow.
I didn't know. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so he was like, "I don't want you to be around this man. This man's creepy. I don't like this."
Yeah.
Well, Brian basically.
Where's the mom?
Now his mom, their parents are divorced.
Oh, okay.
So he lives most of the time with his mother, and then he sees his father. Well, he lives most of the time with his father, and he visits his mother.
Okay. Now,
one day, Brian is like, keeps telling Drake, "Oh, your father's taking all your money. I've seen this before with Macaulay Culkin. I've seen this before with all these other actors. Like, he is not good for you. You need to not be your dad needs to not be your manager. You can't trust him." And one day, Drake goes to his mom's house for a visit, and his mom calls his dad and is like, "Drake doesn't want you to be his manager anymore." And he was like,
let me guess, he wants Brian.
No, the mom was going to be the manager. And he says, "I'll do whatever Drake wants me to do, even though it will break my heart," basically. And Drake said that it was really, really hard for him, but he told him that he didn't want him to be his manager. Because he believed what Brian was saying.
Yeah.
He believed this man. And so he transferred all the bank documents over to his mom. Now, Drake's father never took any money from Drake at all. It was all Drake's money. He never did anything hinky with the money. So none of the things that Brian was saying to Drake was true. And Drake didn't know this until years later.
Oh.
And basically this moment ruined their relationship. Until recently.
Pattern. Don't work for Nickelodeon. It's going to ruin your family.
Yeah. Now, after his mother becomes a manager, Brian had even more access to Drake. Because, see, okay.
Mommy Dearest isn't a real hands-on mommy.
No, she's not. I don't blame her for any of the abuse that Drake went through. But at the same time, her reasoning for letting a grown adult man who your ex-husband, I don't care what kind of relationship you've got, you used to love this man. You got a child with this man. You got multiple children with this man, right? And he comes to you and he says, as he's handing these bank and these important documents so that she can handle Drake's career, and he says, I don't care what you do, but do not let Drake be alone with Brian Peck. He told her. He said,
wow.
Do not let that man be
right
alone
off the bat.
with our son. And I don't know if she didn't believe him or, his dad said that she was also manipulated by Brian, so I'm not quite sure. She wasn't in the documentary. So I'm not quite sure what was going on with her, like what kind of things were said to her from Brian or anything like that. So I don't want to put any blame on her, but when your ex-husband says that, it's always going to be stuck in my brain. Like, why would he have that feeling? Why would he say that to me? Is it just, like what's going on?
Yeah, we got a divorce for this. He's not a bad person, so why would he...
Why would he say this?
Yeah. What's his reasoning?
So, Drake's mom didn't like to travel or drive. She doesn't like to drive. Maybe she has, like, some sort of anxiety about driving, but she doesn't like to drive in LA. Definitely.
Oh, so, I hate to
lived,
drive in LA.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Drake lived an hour outside of LA. So he would have to drive an hour every day to do auditions and stuff like that. But his bestie Brian would drive him, Mother. He would drive him. But they would get back so late. It would be so late. It would be like 1:00 in the morning. Why not just sleep over? Why not just grab a hotel or sleep at Brian's house?
Creep.
It was allowed.
Creep.
And one morning,
Drake didn't say, "Hey, Mom."
Now he hasn't done anything to Drake at this point.
Okay.
Just touching him and stuff like that. Just touching his arms and stuff like that. And you're not really thinking about it.
Yeah.
When someone's doing that. That kind of made me feel uncomfortable. But maybe it's just me. I don't know. You do that, and also he was a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
He's not thinking about that at that time, probably.
No.
And he really, really grew to trust this man.
Apparently.
And so he wakes up one morning as he's sleeping on Brian's couch. Wakes up one morning, and Brian is essaying him.
Wow.
And
that went 0 to 60.
Yeah, it really did. And Drake would not in the interview say everything that happened to him. He would not detail it. He couldn't put it into words. It's something he can't vocalize. But he did tell the interview woman, he said, think of the most horrific thing that you could do to someone while you're essaying them. It was that bad.
Oh my God.
Now, they did show court documents that showed, the charges, so you can kind of get a grasp of what happened. I'm not going to say them here.
You can maybe...
I'll put it on the screen. I don't feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
And also, this will get taken down if I do. It was really, really bad.
That's sad.
Really bad. And he said it only got worse. And he would try, he was like, I can't all of a sudden say that I don't want to go over to Brian's house. But at the same time, he doesn't want to go to Brian's house. Because he knows he's going to get hurt again.
Wow.
And...
that's heavy for a 15-year-old.
It really, really is. And at this time, Drake got a girlfriend. And he talked about how he was over at his girlfriend's house, and Brian calls him. And Brian's like, hey, we were supposed to hang out. We were going to go to Disney. Where are you? And he's like, oh, I must have double planned. I'll just, I'm going to hang out here tonight. I don't want to hang out. Clearly not wanting to be around this man. Because he doesn't want to be hurt again.
Yeah.
And so he hangs up, and Brian calls him like 15 more times. I mean, this man is blowing this kid's phone up. And then when Drake doesn't answer, he calls the girlfriend's house. He called the girlfriend's house.
Oh, that takes some balls.
And he called like 15 times. I'm saying like rapid, not stop. So her mom picks up the phone, gives it to Drake, and Drake's like, oh, I'm not gonna hang out. I'm sorry. And then hangs up. And Drake's girlfriend's mom says, hey, Drake, I want to talk to you in the kitchen for a minute. And she shut the door behind him, and she was like, so what's going on? And he was like, oh, that was just my friend Brian. I don't want to, we had plans tonight, but, and she's like, no. A grown adult man in his 40s does not call my 15-year-old daughter's house to talk to her boyfriend that many times. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't tell you. And she was like, okay, I'm going to call your mom. So she calls his mom and says, Drake's going to come to my therapist tomorrow because something is happening with him and we need to figure out what's going on. And so he went to the therapist and he still couldn't say it, but basically he couldn't say what happened, but he said that something happened. And that is when the investigation on Brian Peck started happening.
Okay. Now, was he the only one that Brian was involved with?
No, they said that they don't even know how many people, because this man has been working in the industry for 40 plus years. Yeah, we don't even know the full amount of victims that had even happened.
So was he arrested when Drake was 15?
About 15 or 15 or 16, yeah. Or I think he was about 16 or 17 years old when he got arrested. But see, nobody had known that it was Drake, and so the one of the other actresses, Giovanni, she was talking about how all of the they got all the kids into one room, and they said all the parents gotta go. You can't be in there.
I don't think so.
We just want to talk to the kids. And they were like, oh, it must be like a rehearsal meeting, work stuff.
Nickelodeon wouldn't like me.
Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it's a really good thing I didn't audition for them.
No.
So they got all the kids into this board meeting room, and Dan is like, so Brian's been arrested for SA, of someone on the set. Did anyone else have any allegations? Does anyone else have any allegations, basically? And they were all like, the way they describe it is I get the impression that they didn't know what to say. Like, is the right answer yes, he did, even if he didn't? Or is the right answer no, he didn't?
Oh,
or,
okay.
Like they didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And they definitely didn't know who it was. The director guy, he actually had gotten fired by Dan Schneider. Because Dan wasn't really liking him. He was kind of like, hey, this is a lot. This is too much. He was trying to stick up for the kids. He was like, making sure, he was like, yeah, that was kind of a hard dare you had to do. Are you okay? He was kind of sticking up for the kids, so Dan didn't like him. When they told him that he was like, that one of the kids that worked on the shows was SA'd by Brian, he was like, while we were filming on our show. Like, he didn't know. And basically, they were like, oh, okay. Dan was like, okay, thank you guys for coming in. Thank you, you know. So they didn't even tell the parents that a pedophile was working with their children.
Yeah, they just, you know.
Let that go by. And
so basically, Nickelodeon, if you're a ped or something, you could just go get hired at Nickelodeon. You know, they have no morals, no standards, no backbone.
mm-hmm. Well, it really gets worse because in every sense of the word, Drake was attacked by this man and then not given justice by the justice system.
What do you mean?
So he was arrested. He was found guilty and he was sentenced. Do you want to guess the number of years he got sentenced?
30?
Nope, it's less than that.
20?
Less than that.
15?
Less than that.
10?
Less than that. Would you like me to tell you how
Yeah,
many?
because I'm not going lower than that. Oh my.
18 months. He got 18 months with no parole.
No.
He did have to register as a sex offender.
He didn't?
He did.
Oh, oh my God.
The main reason why he got such a low sentence is because 41 people, 41, wrote letters in support of him. These are actors, producers, directors. I'm talking Stanley Tucci. There were
wow.
Like there were some high level people. The mom from, I believe, Days of Our Lives. What's with the one with the dad who was anyway, there was a ton of people who wrote letters, and they were all really, really popular. I'll put some of them up on the screen. Now, I do want to preface that we don't know if these people knew the extent of what he was being charged with and what he was, you know, we don't know if they had knowledge of the crimes.
Do you think that it matters if someone says, hey, can you write me a letter to the judge or to the courts? I keep beating the microphone. I'm so sorry.
There was a person who, I cannot off the top of my head remember the name, and I forgot to write it down, of course. Somebody had written a letter to the judge saying, like, he's a great guy. I cannot believe he would even do this. This has got to be, you know, it's got to be made up. You know, this has to be the wrong person. They actually have recanted. They were like, I cannot believe I wrote that letter. I did not know that.
You were looking at the mom from Growing Pains. You asked me who she was.
Growing Pains.
And the dad from Growing Pains.
She wrote a letter. She actually said that in her letter, a little snippet of her letter, she said that he couldn't. He's not a bad guy. He's a nice guy. Brian Peck is a nice guy. He had to have been tempted in some way. There had to be some sort of temptation. Girl, I don't know what planet you live on where a 15-year-old
is
tempting a 40-plus-year-old man in his sleep.
No, I'm sorry. That is completely crazy.
If you don't have self-control, that's on you.
This was a child, not a grown person.
Whether you like Drake Bell or not, you have to admit that the things that this man put him through was awful. And everybody who wrote a letter needs to recant their statement and apologize, or you support pedophiles.
Or you are.
We don't know. Because you wrote a letter in support of one.
Yeah.
41 people.
Wow.
41.
And I loved Growing Pains. I didn't know that's what you wanted to know for.
But see, the father, the guy who played the father on Growing Pains, he is also a convicted pedophile, and she supported him.
Yeah.
So he only got 16 months, and he's not allowed to work on any, Nickelodeon sets or anything like that anymore. And he had to register as a sex offender. But 16 months
is nothing.
Is nothing to the years that Drake will never get back.
Yeah.
Now, in March 2018, Dan Schneider actually was let go. Basically kicked out of Nick. Because of all the allegations. There was all these videos and stuff like that popping up of, like, Ariana Grande, doing all of the disgusting things he made her do. Even as a child, that stuff made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, you used to beg to watch Victorious, and there was no way.
I only watched some of it.
Yeah. It was too inappropriate.
Yeah.
For a child your age. No way.
And so, do you know how much money Nickelodeon gave him?
Nothing.
$7 million.
They fired him and gave him $7 million.
Well, because Dan didn't want to leave.
Oh my God.
And also he was still responsible for some of their biggest shows.
It's not his choice.
While Drake was being essayed by this monster, he was getting ready for season 1 of Drake and Josh. It hadn't started production yet, but they were getting ready to. And Brian Peck was trying so hard to get Drake to get Dan Schneider to put Brian Peck as the dad on the show.
Oh, God. That would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, and Drake was like, no, not happening.
No
not
way.
Doing that.
Now, Josh Peck isn't a winner either.
No,
that's a whole nother story.
He's not a great person either, but he's better than than Brian Peck.
Yeah.
I think all of these stories, all these lives that were destroyed and ruined, and the amount of therapy and years that these kids and adults who had to work on this stuff that they won't get back is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And, Drake Bell can be a victim and a perpetrator at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, statistics say he's going to be a perpetrator.
Yeah.
Because he was a victim.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more likely that he was going to be a perpetrator than he...
Yeah. There's a line there, and you can say...
It gets into your head.
Well, you can say, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, and hold him accountable for what he's done. So, we're holding him accountable for what he did. Those things were not great. You shouldn't have done that.
No, he is not innocent.
But also...
for his crime.
I'm heartbroken to hear the things that he had to go through. And I think that this is like a 50-50 thing for some people.
Yeah.
Some people are saying like, oh, well, what he did in the past doesn't matter, or what happened to him in the past doesn't matter, he's still a bad guy. Some people are saying, well, we should forgive him for these things because of this. And no, he doesn't need to be forgiven.
No.
He needs to be supported for being a victim, but also called out for the bad things that he did.
Maybe rehabilitated.
I think he needs help.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs cancel, because canceling someone doesn't necessarily holding them accountable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hope you guys can understand what I'm saying and what I mean.
I mean, by just saying, oh, he doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't really
fix
do
the
anything.
problem. That doesn't help this person who
does
does
make
need
it
help.
go away. It's not going to disappear because you don't like him anymore.
Right.
He needs to go into therapy and, actually stop.
Yeah.
Actually get help.
Yeah.
And because that's the only way it's going to get fixed.
Yeah.
What he did when he was an adult, that's all on him.
Yeah.
And he needs to face those serious accusations.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
we need to be heartbroken for the 14 and 15-year-old
child.
Drake,
I mean,
who was.
People say that about Amanda Bynes.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at Amanda Bynes. They say, "Oh, she's mentally disturbed." Well, was that partially caused by Dan Schneider?
When
Was that he had to have affected her?
Yeah. She was worked to the bone as a child, and
I know that stories about him that we won't get into right now, but I know stories about him, and I believe that, with my whole chest, things went on with Amanda Bynes that should not have.
Yeah.
He caused her whole life to be destroyed, and she had
Or
mental
at least
illness.
He's a cog in the
yeah, she probably
destruction.
did have mental illness, but I think that that has to be a factor in her life.
Yeah.
So, all of these grown-ups, look out, because I know Dan Snyder did a lot more than just Nickelodeon.
Yeah, he has allegations before.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. I'm sorry it was a lot.
That was heartbreaking. All the people that they were that was affected by them, not just Dan Snyder, but the whole Nickelodeon group, men, women, children, especially the children.
Yeah.
I mean,
no child should have to fear going to school or work.
No. Well, the women. Look what he did to the women.
I know. Well, it's like, children on sets need to be protected.
Yeah, a lot more than they are. Apparently. A lot more.
Yeah.
There needs to be
forgot to
stricter
mention
rules.
That they have since changed this policy because of Brian.
Okay.
And Mr. Hansy. They have since changed this, but it used to be that you did not have to. They did background checks on if I was going to hire you, I'm hiring you as an employee.
Okay.
You're officially a Nickelodeon employee.
Okay.
I got to do a background check on you. But Kevin over there, I'm going to hire him as a freelance person. I do not have to do a background check on him. So, Mr. Hansy had convictions of being a pedo before.
Oh.
And allegations, but they didn't know that because they didn't do a background check.
Wow.
They do now, but kids had to be hurt for them to think common sense.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. These guys that have been convicted of these crimes,
both out of prison now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Probably back at Nickelodeon, or have moved over to Disney. But were they getting full salary, or was it just the women that were?
They were getting full salary. One of the women who worked on, she was going to get hired for season 2 of Amanda Bynes, the Amanda Bynes show, and she said that she was getting paid half salary, but the white male actor, or the white male writer, who didn't have any credits under his name, and she's really popular. She'd been there since the start. She's been working with Dan for years. But this guy who has no credits under his name, never written for a TV show at all, gets paid full salary.
And I bet he never had to bend over a table.
Nope.
I wonder the men who were just like regular men who were just honest, trying to make a living. How can they go to work and see children being abused and women being abused? Because you said it just wasn't the writers. It was.
Well, it was also like like Giovanni was saying how it was kind of normal. You'd spend a couple hours with a person with Dan, and it was like the inappropriate jokes were like, oh, that just must be what happens. And these guys were so scared. Even the men probably were scared that they would get fired and lose their job if they didn't go along with it. And he made this. They said when he would walk on set, it would go from happy to tension in the air immediately. Because he liked making people uncomfortable and he likes making people scared. It's his favorite thing to do.
I'm glad he's not there anymore.
I didn't even get into some of the disgusting jokes that were said.
I don't even want to hear that. I thought he was working on the new iCarly show.
I believe he still is. That's why Miranda Cosgrove wouldn't work on the show.
Oh,
not Miranda. Jeanette McCurdy.
Oh, poor Jeanette.
Jeanette was destroyed by Dan.
Yeah, that breaks my heart.
We didn't even talk about Zoe 101.
Oh, that is a whole mess right there. That is too much. I remember seeing all of that come out and how he would hang around with Britney Spears' little sister, whatever her name is. And she who shall not be named.
Like with Drake, I am sorry for what happened in her past, but also need to hold her accountable for what happens in the future.
Yeah.
Or in the present times. But yes, I think that's where we're gonna end it. We've talked for a long time, and that was a lot. Be safe and happy and healthy, and
go drink a cup of tea and take a bath and read a book.
And hug your kids if you have kids.
Yeah. And like and subscribe.
And follow and share and comment your feelings.